Hello everyone, welcome back to the kitchen table. Today on the kitchen table, Barry and I wanted to have a bit of a discussion about the news over the weekend about some proposed legislation in the UK. We haven't actually had a chat. Barry can't be here today, but he's joining us via the power of the Amazon she who must not be named. Don't want to say it, otherwise it will break the connection. So hello Barry.
Hello Simon, how are you?
I'm marvellous, thank you very much. Before we go any further, the traditional pleasantries. It's the kitchen table. We always have a beverage. Personally, I'm on a home roasted Colombian, which is my go-to Americano. So I'll say cheers.
Cheers to you, sir. As I am on a deliciously caramel-coloured soft drink that is pushed to the maximum.
Yes, we must work on getting more sponsorship deals so we can mention brands.
Absolutely.
Only kidding. So there was a big flurry, and Barry, by the power of editing, will before your very eyes be putting just a few screen grabs of various news sites that came in over the weekend, because the UK government announced that it's going to bring in legislation in 2018 to more closely regulate drone use. Now, I decided to go to the source. I've printed off the official government press release here rather than the some of the kind of more hysterically headlines, because I wanted to know exactly what has been said for definite and what is only a maybe and what wasn't mentioned. So by the power of the yellow Sharpie of excitement, I've just highlighted a few bits. I'm going to read these out, and Barry and I are going to have a little discussion, because we actually haven't had a chance to speak about this. Barry, as you know, is a commercial drone pilot. He has his permission for commercial operations, and he's a pro photographer, so he uses it as a tool. And I'm definitely not a pro, and I just muck around with the thing. So here's, first of all, it's going to be a draft drone bill. So nothing is set in stone. They're going to publish a draft bill, which is going to go out for consultation. And there's some things that they said it will have and some things that they said it might. The things that it will have, it will give police officers the right to order operators to ground their drones where necessary. That seems to me like a common sense thing. Oi, you're flying over a prison, put it down, you know. Police officers will also be able to seize drone parts to prove it has been used to commit an offence. Good luck with that, unless really what you mean is the SD card from the camera. New measures will also make it mandatory for drone owners to register to improve accountability. And drone operators will be required to use apps so they can access information needed to make sure any planned flight can be made safely and legally. Banning drones from flying near airports or above 400 feet could also form part. Not will, but could. So that's the kind of the nuts and bolts. If we go back to, okay, so the aviation minister, Baroness Sugg, said that they want to be able to stop illegal use of drones and address safety and privacy concerns. So it's going to be a draft drone bill for consultation, and then it's going to change the air navigation order to mean that drone users will have to sit safety awareness tests, and users of drones weighing 250 grams and over will in future have to be registered. So, Barry, as a commercial operator of drones who makes part of his living by using them, what do you think to what you've heard so far?
Well, excuse me, let me just check the time. Oh, that's right. Yeah, it's 2017. That's handy, because obviously, if it was anything like 2014, so that there's not several million drones have been sold already, then we would be in such trouble by trying to close this gate now the horse has bolted, wouldn't we? But 3 years after we've been selling drones, note the sarcasm in my voice. Yeah, I mean, theoretically, it's some great ideas, you know, which really should have been implemented way back in 2013, 2014, when all of a sudden the people in China thought, hang on a minute, let's make this white and a quadcopter and then sell it really cheap so everybody can fly them. I am, what shall I say? I think most of what you've said, what they're proposing, can still be done, particularly if you take it from the police side of things. Well, the police can stop people from flying now. That was quite confirmed with a guy called Eddie Mitchell down on the south coast. If they want somebody to stop, they will. Whether it was rightly or wrongly at that time, they can stop you. They can find a way to stop you flying. So that already exists. This thing about 400 feet, well, you can't go above 400 feet now without breaking air navigation orders. So why all of a sudden that's going to be made into some draft proposal is ridiculous, because you shouldn't be doing it now.
Just to say and interrupt you on that, Barry, the thing is that actually it's in the drone code, and you were right, you shouldn't, but the air navigation order doesn't mention a height. What the air navigation order says is you should keep it within visual range at all times.
So
technically, if you're flying at 700 feet and you're within visual range and can show that, then there's no broken load. I guess what they're saying here is they want to make the drone code suggested maximum an actual legal limit.
So let's play devil's advocate with this just for a second then. You can propose what you like. The government at the time proposed speed limits on motorways. The majority of people stick to those speed limits, and they don't break the law, and they don't get speeding fines. At the end of the day, I can't see anything in this proposal, which I think is a good idea. I think this should be done. Don't get me wrong, I'm not against it at all. The problem is you will have the same few people breaking the same few laws if this goes through, and it will just... What will happen? Nothing really. All it will do is it will stop the odd recreational flyer when they go into a large retailer, look in and go, oh, I've got to do this now, I've got to do this course, and I've got to do this, and I've got to do this. Oh, I can't be bothered with that. I'm just going to go and buy a console to play some games on. I think it's great that they've got this coming in, but really, it's too late.
I agree with you on that front. And one of the difficulties with any new legislation is it's very legally tricky to make things retrospective. I mean, look at things that we all like that are fundamental to safety. So, for example, if I build a house, if I buy a house, that was built in the 1950s, it could have been a complete electrical death trap by today's standards, but there's nothing to say I have to go backwards in time and refit out the house. If you put a new extension on, you've got to conform with the current regs, and you've got to make, it's got to be to current. But retrospective legislation is really tricky. So what are they going to say? Are they going to, for people who've already got drones, this registration side of things? What about a safety test? It's a bit like when, driving licenses. There are people, not many, thank goodness, but there are people who have been elderly people who were driving in the 30s before there was a driving test, who've just kind of, do you make people go back and, is it only on new purchases? Do you make a system whereby everybody says, oh yeah, I've got 15 of these things? I mean, the reason why I've got these on the table is that under this proposed 250 grams, but these are, I've just raided my under the desk stockpile of crap that we've been sent over the years to look at. This little thing weighs 130 grams. It's got a tiny little camera. It's, thin brittle plastic. It's a toy. It's just going to pee about. This thing is also a toy. It weighs a little bit more, but it's still under 200 grams, but it's got quite hard plastic. It's got a 720p micro camera here. But most interestingly, it comes, here it is, with a 5.8 gigahertz screen, so you can get a downlink from that little camera. Now, I don't have to register that at all, but I mean, if you're talking about privacy concerns or people using them to, I don't know, let's say scope out some, do a bit of a stakeout or something and scope out something that they want to do a job on, a bank job or something, that's going to be perfectly legal to have. And I suspect that could still do a little bit of damage if that got ingested by a, helicopter or something. So there is this kind of arbitrary thing. But like you, Barry, and this, I've been saying it for years, and as a channel, The Kitchen Table, we've always advocated bloody fly safely. Whatever the law says, if there is a law or there isn't law, just fly safely, because otherwise, if we don't, we're going to get punished for the 1 or 2% who are idiots. And I think the drone community, recently we had the event with the CAA at Compton Abbas. I think that was a really positive thing. But as you said, it was full of the 99% who probably already do the right thing. Is this going to help with the 1%? Because they're not going to register anyway. And the other thing that I think we need to be careful of is, as a drone flying community who maybe use YouTube and we put our videos up on YouTube, I think we need to be very careful about the content. There is still some reckless drone flying content that's being posted to YouTube, and that's just gonna, when the consultation goes out, if you've got a channel that's got some iffy flying on it, then you can bet your bottom dollar people like the British Airline Pilots Association, the police, and so on and so forth are going to be able to say, look, we need to stop this kind of behaviour. So we kind of need to, as a community, make sure that we are coming together and doing the right things. But more importantly, we need to have a kind of a common voice that says, look, we embrace sensible, safe flying, but we might have some concerns over some of these issues. I don't have a big brother worry about registering drones. I just have a concern that it's completely arbitrary, set at a weight limit. When, as we know, cameras are getting smaller and more higher quality, and the drones that are putting them up there are getting smaller and lighter. So what do? Do you chase it downwards? So no, I'm not against a sensible suite of legislation. In some respects, I agree with what you're saying. It's kind of like it's just about enough, but quite late. But we've also got to be careful that online testing and safety awareness courses. Who's going to administer them? Who's going to pay for them? If you buy it, what you're going to do? Stop people buying off Amazon? They're not going to send you a leaflet with every drone. So I don't know. I want to see the draft. They've done a bit of a news thing, and they've added up with, oh look, we're promoting drones as commercial use of drones. But let's wait until we see the meat of this legislation, because, there's a quote here from a National Police Chief Counsel lead for criminal misuse of drones, Assistant Chief Constable Serena Kennedy, who said, "Don't take this lightly. If you use a drone to invade people's privacy or engage in disruptive behaviour, you could face serious criminal charges." Well, surely if I invaded your privacy with my camera or with my car, or if I engaged in disruptive behaviour with a baseball bat, I could face criminal charges as well. We need to be a little bit careful, but I really do think that the drone community needs to make sure that we are not adding some more ammunition to the anti-drone kind of campaign that I'm sure will build up slightly, that wants to squeeze those restrictions and keep us a lot tighter. That's my opinion anyway.
And isn't it funny that this comes out 1 month before Christmas, when ultimately one of the big must-have Christmas presents, certainly for the domestic market, would be a drone? Isn't it funny that just before Christmas, when people are probably writing off to Father Christmas about what they want for this year, and drones will probably be, high on the top 10 list, all of a sudden this has come out to say, yes, just be a bit careful, won't you? But, we're thinking of doing this. And as you say, we have laws in place at the moment. Air navigation orders keep us within the lines so that, if the 99% don't break them. But it's also interesting, just one day after an incident happened, which actually involved, and I'll put the picture on screen now, a BBC News crew caused a major security alert after flying their drone over a high security unit housing dangerous foreign convicts. Worried staff at Morton Hall Immigration Removal Centre raised the alarm after seeing a HD camera-equipped craft last month. Police were called and the incident was treated so seriously, the Minister for Justice and the Home Office were alerted. Well, I'm not being funny, but how's that going to change anything? There is laws there now that, we have these rules and regulations. We have seen a few prosecutions for people that have been really very, very silly and flying drones in completely ridiculous places. But having another piece of paper for somebody to wave at somebody and go, these are the rules, you must stick to these. And by the way, bringing these in, who's going to police it?
Yeah, well, exactly. The police are supposed to have to police it. Now, the police are supposed to currently police the air navigation order, but they don't understand it quite, and I'm not blaming them. Why should they? It's a very technical piece of legislation, and even and I don't mean this in a negative way, Barry, as you just show, even then, there's even amongst the people who are professionals, the 400-foot rule is something that is not a rule. It's actually a guideline, and yet so even if there's people are still, there's an element of slight misunderstanding and confusion. So the police have got no chance. But the thing is, it's the stupid thing about it is it's like talking again here about, okay, so you're going to have to register your drones. You're going to have to undergo safety tests. These things, these toy ones, that won't apply. But a lot of the guys who do the FPV racing, I bet their gear's over the 250. Now, they're probably the least, well, okay. Most of them, when they're racing, of course, the faster you can, the lower you can stay, the faster you'll get around the course. So they're not going to be above 30 feet. There are some hot dogging videos on YouTube showing people flying close to skyscrapers and over public stuff. That, I think, in my opinion, needs to be come down on like a ton of bricks, because kids who get these for Christmas are going to look at YouTube videos and go, that is cool, I'm going to fly across. And even though this isn't going to do much damage to anyone, the negative press is potentially very harmful to the rest of us if there is draft legislation on the table. So, you know, I think we do. That's why I said, as a community of people who use these things for whatever you want to do, aerial photography, messing about in your back garden, world-class FPV racing, we need to be a little bit careful about making sure that we are seen, that the vast majority of us are seen as, you know, we're good guys, we toe the line. Otherwise, it will be used against all of us. But you're quite right. If I'm a serious criminal, I am not going to register my drone. I am not going to attend a safety course. I am not going to use an app to pre-flight my flight over the prison to drop my drugs. Just like if I'm a criminal, obviously there's no gun culture in the UK. It's illegal to have firearms for most people. If you're a die-hard criminal, you're going to find one. You're going to get around that. You're never going to be able to legislate against that. But I don't know. I just think that principle where it says you're going to have to use an app. Really? I mean, which app? So how can you guarantee that you can't surely just pin it on one? That would be a bit unusual. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like the CAA's app, the one that they use Altitude Angel's back end systems, the one that has NOTAMs. I think it's brilliant. But is it really? Are you saying that every time we look out the window and go, oh, look, brilliant weather, I'm just going to go to the field out the back. No, hang on. I've just got to plan my flight with this, I mean, there's got to be some common sense there. So, that I don't think anyone who is otherwise flying really responsibly should be criminalised or penalised because they don't jump through every single hoop. And I think some of those are unnecessary. On the flip side, I think there are some people who are, irresponsibly flying. Not criminals, we can't legislate for those. That's a whole separate thing. But irresponsible use, flying close to airfields. And that's where things like the CAA, the Share the Air thing that we did at Compton, and that there's going to be more in the new year. I think those are massively important because it brings people together from the light aircraft community, the drone community, to say, look, we're all pilots, so we should all behave like them and just be a little bit sensible. It's a bit more softly, and a bit of a carrot and a let's all stick together, because otherwise, anybody who flies recreationally is going to get squeezed down by the pressures on the airspace from commercial aviation, and now even maybe drone deliveries. I noticed this other thing that they announced was that they have 5 cities who can bid to be pilot cities to trial drones being used for like organ transplants or courier deliveries. So maybe the 400-foot maximum is because they want to have, that 400 to 500 foot as a corridor for themselves. I don't know. I think we just need to be, as a community, a little bit careful. But what do you guys think? There's a space on the comments. You've listened to us waffle along. Barry, what are your final thoughts on this?
Well, I think it's like anything, isn't it? If it's done accurately, professionally and right, then I think it will be good. The problem I have, I think, is that this is just, there've been a few rumours of this coming for the last couple of weeks, and we spoke to somebody at the Compton Abbas thing, say, this is going to happen and there's going to be big changes next year, and different distances people can fly depending on their ability to fly and whether they've got a licence or whether they've had a test. As long as it's done right, and we don't suddenly have a convenient near miss just before this goes to the House of Lords or the House of Commons to become law, I think we should be okay. And it worries me that a knee-jerk reaction will be it will have such a huge detrimental impact on everybody that all of a sudden it will be too much hassle to do anything. And then all of a sudden this brilliant, creative and just fantastic technology that we have will just suddenly be dropped like a stone, simply because the hoops that you have to jump through will be too difficult, and people will just go, do you know what, I can't be bothered, let's leave it. Organ transplant deliveries, I mean, I think it's brilliant. We already see air ambulances have caused a massive, massive increase on the number of people that have accidents and get involved in accidents. Their lives are saved simply because the transport on the roads is too slow. That's brilliant. Let's look at this properly, that if they want to trial these things, let's do it properly and let's do it safely and have the proper rules and regs in place, rather than just have this knee-jerk reaction. We're going, well, these people can fly where they want to because they're going to have a heart. They can't. There's still air traffic. Nobody owns the air. Everybody uses the air. Let's do this properly. Let's consult on it properly, rather than have a knee-jerk reaction and bring in some stupid law in, which, to be honest, is going to be not worth the paper it's printed on.
No, I absolutely agree, and I think you're right, and I think it goes that, as I said earlier, I think there's two things we can do. One, the 99% of us need to make sure we are not endangering aircraft, and we're not flying near Heathrow, and we're even avoiding or at least getting permission if we want to go somewhere near our local airfields, and we engage with the other recreational air users. We go to things like the Share the Air events. Again, there'll be more of those next year, and all those kind of good stuff. And I think we also owe it, especially now, if you are someone who posts your content online, whether you do it as a channel, or whether it's just something that you do, let's not put stuff that is reckless and or illegal in the public domain, because you're not doing any of us any favors, point one. But also point two, I think we need to have a little bit of a voice as well, because I'm not a commercial airline pilot. I used to fly light aircraft years ago, so I have a vague understanding about what you can perceive. But I am aware that some of these near-miss reports about drones and commercial airlines, it flew 50 foot over my wing, it was this, it was that, are, let's just say, things that were caught out of the corners of eyes, of unknown origin, and would have been reported as a drone. And so I think it does behove the industry and maybe the community to turn around and say, sorry, you had a near miss with something that was 5 foot across with 4 rotor blades at 5,000 feet. Well, it ain't one of us guys flying one of those if that's what it was. There is some of that, and you're quite right. We just all need to make sort of doubly sure that we are showing that there's no need to come down hard on us guys, because we're not the problem. Go after the crims, by all means. Make the illegal use of drones and the dangerous use of drones ton of bricks time. Some big prosecutions. For goodness sakes, all you have to do is spend an hour on YouTube, and you've probably got several cases there. I don't know what the answer is to make people more aware, but I think those of us who are already in the drone community, we owe it to everybody to just make sure that we have a pro-drone voice from the recreational point of view. I think the commercial guys, and no offence to you, Barry, I think you'll be fine, because it even says in here we want to encourage the commercial use of drones. But it's actually the guys who just chuck the things up in the air for a laugh. I think we need to be showing that we are not anybody that the government needs to really worry about. And I think that will help. Well, there we go. We've probably whittled on far too long. But, if you have been, thanks for listening to this. Join in, have a conversation down below. Let's get some discussion here, what we think about this in the UK. And obviously, when the draft bill does come out for consultation, we will let everybody know. And hopefully it's a public consultation. We will have our chance to input as a community onto that. So in the meantime, thank you very much, as ever, and we will see you soon. Hit back here on the kitchen table. So from Barry, it's goodbye.
Ta-ta for now.
And for me, it's goodbye. Cheers.